The Maryland Terps just marked 10 years since realigning the then expanded Big Ten. What kind of roadmap did they leave for the four West Coast teams that are coming next month, like USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington? Hopefully, they left a hint of patience. I'll explain. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked on Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked on Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. 10 years of Terps in the Big Ten. Will the Pac-4 take note? We have some recruiting news, some big players coming to the Big Ten, and our power rankings deals with rivalries. You'll want to hang around for that. It's changing up a little bit here with all these changes. On yesterday's show, we did Tuesday tweets. We do it every Tuesday. And we retweeted something that the Maryland Terps tweeted out. It was a pat on the back and a reminder that, hey, Maryland's 10-year anniversary since joining the Big Ten was something to announce. It's something to behold. And they let everybody know it. They're proud of it. 10 years in the books. They noted that the 10 years included in all sports where they won 6 national championships, 49 Big Ten titles, 67 NCAA tournament appearances, and 75 individual NCAA championship appearances. And they're going to mark the celebration throughout the month of July here. Overall, it's a lot to hang one's hat on, for sure. They're proud. We're proud. It's all good. Naturally, I got to wondering about the 4 West Coast teams that are joining the league in August. And I started thinking about how quickly these teams will assimilate their own successes like Maryland did. And I wondered what the conference would look like when Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA all tweeted out on their 10-year anniversary, their tweets that they've been in the Big Ten for 10 years in the year 2034. First of all, that's when my head started exploding, trying to picture the Big Ten and college football, for that matter, 10 years from now. I mean, the amount of change that's happened in just the last 2 years would have been unimaginable in my childhood. I also noted that 10 years from now, in 2034, the ACC will still have 2 years left on that horrible grant of rights media deal that they're locked into that we talk about all the time. But that's another story for another day, and we always do that story. I always enjoy it because it means more future growth for the Big Ten ultimately. Anyway, I must admit, as I look back and being a lifelong Big Ten fan, it took time for us Big Ten people to get used to, for example, Penn State joining and making an 11-team conference back in 1990. That's right. The 11 teams in the Big Ten, everybody talked about, wow, it's the Big Ten. They have 11 teams. That's weird. They try to incorporate the 11 in the middle of the Big Ten logo and all that kind of stuff. Eventually, we got used to it. It took a while. Then in 2011, 21 years later, as we were getting used to Penn State and 11 teams in the Big Ten, we balanced things out with a 12th team. That's when Nebraska joined. And that also seems strange, as Nebraska was a Big 8 or Big 12 team, not a Big 10 team, right? I mean, again, we got used to it. And now we love having Nebraska and Penn State in the Big Ten. Can't imagine the conference without them, to be honest with you. Then 2014 came along, and so did Maryland. They bolted from the ACC. And by the way, did that look like an awesome move from where we sit today? I mean, that was really thinking ahead back in 2014. And of course, Rutgers arrived as well. Again, a lot of people wrinkled their noses a little bit at Rutgers and Maryland. Are these Big Ten teams? This is weird. But the Big Ten, they wanted their footprint to reach the East Coast. Mission accomplished. And Maryland and Rutgers made themselves financially sound forever. Now, while all these additions, they seem foreign at the time, they took some time to get used to. When we look ahead to this 2024 expansion, the realignment, expansion, the addition of Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA, For some reason, and tell me if you agree with me, it doesn't seem that weird. It doesn't seem that foreign. Maybe because we're just used to change all the time in college football and college athletics. But this move, it feels right. It feels good. I think everybody in the Big Ten is pretty happy about this move. I'm excited about it. I can't wait for the new matchups on the field or on the court or wherever these teams play. But why is that? Why does this feel a lot more normal than, say, when we went through the Maryland and Rutgers edition, or when we added Penn State, or when we added Nebraska? Again, teams weren't hopping around left and right back then. So that's a part of why it seemed weird. We're more used to that idea now. I also think that because as a kid, I was conditioned to watch Michigan and Ohio State play USC and UCLA from time to time in the Rose Bowls. The matchups I'm used to seeing, right? Maybe it was because I just saw with you Michigan play Washington in the biggest game of the year last year in the national championship. We all want to see more of that. Maybe while nobody really watched Oregon while I was a kid, but for the last 25 years, though, they've really kind of come onto the scene in college football, and now they're a mainstay on national television, and they're a really good football program, and we're ready to see more of the Ducks. I stand by my statement, by the way, if you're new to the podcast, that the Ohio State game at Oregon in October is the biggest game in the Big Ten this year. Yes, bigger than Michigan and Ohio State this year. Speaking of rivalries, hang around to the end. You don't want to miss that. We got something for you on our power rankings. But we're used to Oregon being around, and we're waiting for some pretty big games right away. Now, while these new teams do seem for some levels of success, Maryland football, when they jumped in here 10 years ago this week, they didn't have a lot of success since they upgraded to big boy football in the Big Ten. Remember, they came in with Randy Edsall back in 2014, and DJ Durkin and Matt Canada. They all added to the list of Maryland coaches that struggled with Big Ten play, and they didn't last very long at Maryland. Now, their current head coach, Mike Locksley, he's slowly trying to figure out how he can get Maryland to that next level in the Big Ten. His first 2 years, he went a combined 5-12. That included the abbreviated year in 2020 because of COVID. In year 3, 2021, had a winning season at 7-6. But the last 2 years, he's posted back-to-back 8-5 seasons. Pretty good. Now, I know they want to get into that next notch, and they started out 5-0 last year. And they're like, all right, we're going to jump in there with Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State, right? Didn't quite get there, had a bit of a skid, to say the least. Lost a lot of games in a row and able to salvage it at the end and go 8-5 overall. But it's hard to break through in the Big Ten. It takes time. Now, Oregon may test that theory right away. They're built to win right now, no matter what league they're in. And USC might be not right behind them, but right there. With any improvement on defense from what they've had over the last few years, Lincoln Riley's squad may battle for a playoff spot. Maybe. Their schedule's brutal too. Maybe not. But you know what? They're not a bad team. Let's just leave it at that for now. It looks like Washington and especially UCLA, they may be more on a trajectory somewhat like the one that Maryland took. 10 years to respectability. Maybe. Now, if you're a UCLA or a fan of Washington, you don't want to hear that right now. You want to hear, hey, we're going to be good this year or next year, right? We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But, you know, it took Maryland just 10 years just to get kind of above the middle of the pack. So while some of those teams, you know, they fight to rise to the top, and don't forget, we're talking about these 4 new teams. We still have Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State now. They're not going away. So you got to fight through and get to those guys as well. We also have some tough outs in the Big Ten right in the middle of the pack, like Iowa and Wisconsin. And now Rutgers is very respectable. That's why 2024 promises to be the best Big Ten season ever, I think. And Locked On Big Ten is going to get you ready. Starting on Monday, we're going to begin our team-by-team, day-by-day season previews for all 18 teams over the next 3 weeks. And we'll go on the record with our projected win totals for each team along the way. If I'm right, I look like a genius. If not, at the end of the season, it's on the record. You can look back, Craig, hey, you said only X amount of wins here or whatever. We'll do it. We'll put it all on the line right here. Be sure to subscribe, especially if you like what you see and hear here. Subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And since we're talking about Maryland and the 4 Pac-12 schools coming up, if you're a Maryland fan, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, USC, go to our website at talkbig10.com. Not only will all of our podcasts be there, but you can get hats, shirts, all your team apparel. Get yourself ready for the upcoming season. You see the crawl right there on the bottom if you're watching on video. talkbig10.com. All right, so we've got a lot of recruiting to talk about. Again, we've been talking about it quite a bit over the past couple of weeks, and today is no exception. Got news from Michigan. They got a trio of guys they got circled they want in for their offense. Oregon, USC going after some big players. We'll talk about Rutgers. They got themselves a quarterback for 2026 already. It's all coming up right here. Stay with us on Locked On Big Ten. You want to go to a game? You want to go to a baseball game this summer? Get Game Time. The Game Time app right on your phone. Get your tickets right there. Game Time is an authorized ticket agent of Major League Baseball. Makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on Game Time actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. It's amazing. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat. Before you click and buy a particular ticket, you'll see the view from that seat. Oh, yeah, that's good. I want it. Good. And all these deals are right there, and it takes all the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Plus, they have you could save up to like 60% on buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. If it needs a ticket, you can get it with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and the redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe and, of course, share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten if you don't mind. That helps us out. I always ask. Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget to check out our website for swag, merchandise, and all of our podcasts. You can go back and watch more right there on talkbig10.com. All right. Michigan football continues to dial in more recruits for the class of 2025. After a slow start to recruiting, Wolverines have a top 20 class. They got more late additions coming up. They're going to climb up these rankings here in the next couple of weeks. They got 3 offensive players that they have circled. They haven't committed yet, but they seem to be leaning toward committing to the Wolverines. If they get them, this is going to really boost them up. They got there's a 4-star wide receiver, Andrew Marsh. He's a top 10 wide receiver. He's 6'1", borderline 5-star guy, a high 4-star. He could be the highest rated receiver to come to Michigan since Donovan Peoples-Jones back in 2017. He is someone that could get some immediate playing time his freshman year in 2025. He is also considering USC, Texas, and Kentucky. There's also 3-star wide receiver Phillip Wright. He's pretty fast, quick hands, good hands. His choices are Michigan, Georgia, and LSU. He's a Louisiana native, so keep an eye on LSU. Right now, word is he's leaning Michigan. 4-star tight end. This is a player I'm pretty excited about if they get him. Andrew Olesh. And he may decide and announce where he's going next week. They say by Tuesday. I think that's the 8th. He's big. 6'5", 215 pounds. This past junior year, he had 53 catches, 972 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He's also looking at Penn State in the Big Ten, also looking at Florida, and all of a sudden Alabama is coming in hard for this guy as well. Not everything's going Michigan's way. 4-star edge rusher Marco Jones, who had Michigan on a short list, says he's going to Texas A&M. He was talking to Texas and USC as well. Let's talk about the Oregon Ducks for a minute. and they're in the running for 5-star corner DJ Pickett. The Ducks are landed 4 and 5 stars left and right. Some people who rank these things say that their class of 2025 is a top 5 class nationally. Now, Pickett is a two-way star. He's an intriguing player. Caught 52 passes for over 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns this past year. The year before, as a sophomore, also played on the defensive side of the ball, got 4 interceptions. He's from Florida. He's also considering Georgia, LSU, and Miami. The Ducks are also looking at 4-star offensive lineman Juan Gaston. He announced that he will share his school of choice on August 2nd. He's looking at Georgia, Tennessee, and South Carolina as well. They're all battling the Ducks for his services. He's a big one, 6'7", 345 pounds. Speaking of big, Southern Cal, they get a big commit, literally 6'8", 365-pound offensive lineman Elijah Vecona. He's coming to Troy, coming to Southern Cal. He's from in-state at Rancho Santa Margarita, and he was also considering UCLA and Washington. So he looks like he wants to stay on the West Coast, but he's going to go to Southern Cal. Let's talk about Rutgers for a minute. Amazing recruiting class for 2025. Greg Schiano's second act looks like it's going pretty well. And in addition to 2025, they're also working on 2026. They just offered quarterback Gavin Sidwar in the spring, and he accepted. He's the first announced commitment for the Scarlet Knights class of 2026. It feels like Greg Schiano and his staff can maximize his ability there, and he says he wants to win a Big Ten championship. He thinks he's going to do it at Rutgers. He's 6'3". He's out of Pennsylvania. Got a strong arm, mobile in the pocket, and he's already a 2-year starter in high school. This junior season, he threw for 2,400 yards and 29 touchdowns. Before announcing, he was talking and looking at schools like Duke and Syracuse and Pitt and Indiana, West Virginia, and Virginia. Going to go to Rutgers. So there you have it. A lot of recruiting news, man. It's just, you just think you get into the end of it, and you're not. It's a lot of stuff out there. We'll keep an eye on it right here on Locked On Big Ten. Hey, speaking of Locked On, instead of watching everybody screaming at each other all day on daytime sports talk TV on FS1 or ESPN, turn down the volume or change the channel. I got another idea for you. Our friends at Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming and craziness and nonsense. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or for free on the Amazon Fire TV Channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Wednesday, we always like to put out power rankings. I borrowed one. I found it on CBS. I'll give them credit. They listed all the best Big Ten football rivalries now that we have 4 new schools in. I don't necessarily agree with the entire list. I'm going to share it with you. I'll give you my comments. We'll see where your school is on this list. I know your school some schools have multiple rivalries. We'll have all that coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Passion, drive, and patience. It is the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, whether you're into power, whether you're into style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day. You know, our final segment here, we always like to do some sort of power rankings. Now, as I mentioned, I found one. I didn't come up with this on my own. I'm going to put it out here. It was from CBS. They put the best Big Ten rivalries. Now that we have 4 new schools and they bring their rivalries with them as well. So we're going to put them up here and we're going to discuss them. I got to comment on each of these. If you're on audio only, I'll describe them in details. We go to full screen here and put it on up. Obviously, I mean, everybody on earth is going to acknowledge that Michigan and Ohio State, the game is the game. That's the biggest rivalry in the Big Ten. It is the biggest rivalry in college football. It is arguably the biggest rivalry in all of sports in America, I think. So we're not touching that one. That's a good pick by them. Number 2, they got Minnesota versus Wisconsin. That's the battle for the Paul Bunyan Axe. They have played this rivalry and on the football field 133 times. Goes back to 1890. Of those 133 times, Wisconsin has won 63 times. Minnesota has won 62 times. They've tied 8 times. That is a razor-thin margin for a rivalry, and it should be very high on this list. At number 3, they have Iowa versus Minnesota. Of course, they play for the Floyd of Rosedale Trophy. Anytime you're dealing with a trophy of a pig, and it goes back 100 years, or how many ever years, sign me up. Here they decided to sneak in UCLA versus USC. They play for the Victory Bell. By the way, USC has won this 50 times. UCLA has won 34 times, tied 7. I don't know if I would have put this high. I lived in LA for 10 years. You know, USC, they got this UCLA game near the end of the season, but they're always looking for the Notre Dame game. I don't know. And USC's won a lot of these lately. So I would not put this high. I think this is too high. Other Big Ten football rivalries, according to CBS. Number 5, they got Michigan versus Michigan State. They play for the Paul Bunyan Trophy. That's a cool trophy. They got the whole little brother thing. And that's kind of how it's worked out. Michigan is 73, 38, and 5 against Michigan State. So anyway, that's up there. They've got Oregon and Washington at number 6. They played 116 times. There are only 3 rivalries that have played more times. So, yeah, that's worthy. And the cool part is this rivalry travels. It comes to the Big Ten with these 2 schools coming to the Big Ten. At number 7, they have Iowa versus Wisconsin playing for the Heartland Trophy. This goes back to 1894. Any series that starts and plays regularly since 1800 something, I think has got to be on everybody's list. They play 96 times. This is another razor thin one, Iowa and Wisconsin, much like Minnesota and Wisconsin. Wisconsin with a 49-46-2 record. These are great rivalries. At number 8, one I grew up with in the state of Indiana versus Purdue for the Old Oaken Bucket. This is the second most played for trophy, 124 meetings here. Yeah, I don't know how it does on the national radar, but in the Big Ten and in the state of Indiana, it's pretty cool. At number 9, they've got Iowa versus Nebraska, playing for the Heroes Trophy. And this is only this 2011. I would not put this one this high. I think this is taking up valuable top 10 space. We have left some off of their top 10. They have, I should say. So I might bump this one down. At number 10, they have Illinois versus Purdue. They play for a Purdue Cannon, which I don't know, playing for something that's Purdue oriented. It's not neutral. I don't know how Illinois feels about this. Now, the one cool thing about this rivalry now is Purdue head coach Ryan Walters 2 seasons ago was the defensive coordinator at Illinois. This is the school he came from. And the schools are 95 miles apart. And it's got a razor-thin margin in the series. Purdue has a 48, 45, and 6 record in this series. So it's worthy of some mentions. Now, I got a couple more I want to put in here. Like I said, there's a couple I would bump out. But I would, they don't have Michigan versus Minnesota and the little brown jug. I'd have that in my top 10. You know, I actually remember watching that game as a kid and Bo Schembechler raising the little brown jug and doing his post-game interview. And so this is the most like prestigious trophy in all of college sports. I don't know. I don't know. Illinois and Northwestern, the land of Lincoln Trophy, where Illinois has a razor-thin 57, 55, and 5 record. That's not on this list. It should be. Indiana and Michigan State, they play for the old brass spittoon. Anytime you got a spittoon involved, it's like 100 years old. It's got to be on the list. So anyway, I got a lot of problems with the bottom half of this list. I'll be curious to see what you guys think as well. Hit me up on the comments. Many ways for you to interact. You can hit us up on Twitter at Talk Big 10 with the number 10. Also the website, Talk Big 10. Again, it's the number 10. Don't spell out 10. TalkBig10, number 10.com. And also the comments on YouTube. I'll hear from you on this on YouTube for sure on some of these. Be sure to subscribe, though, before you go, and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app. If you listen on audio only, that's cool too. Many ways to listen. Spread the word. We're out here, video and audio, every single day on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Also, when you're done, check out another episode. They're all on that website, talkbig10.com. Check it out. Plus, get some swag from your favorite team. When you're done with us, check out our friends from Locked On. They got Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 coverage. Talking about the top sports stories of the day. First ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube as well. Locked On Sports Today. All right, programming notes. Enjoy the visit as always here today. Going to take the 4th of July off. You be with your family. I'll be with my family. And then the 5th as well, Friday. So a little break right here. Monday, we come at it. All right. We're going to start previewing every team, schedule predictions, everything. We'll highlight a different team every day. That's going to take us 18 days. We got 18 teams to look at. Along the way, we're going to hit Big Ten Media Days, and practice starts in August, and the season's here. So I feel like the season's here now. Enjoy your weekend. Have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend with your family. Thank you for visiting us here today. As always appreciate it. Spread the word. Hey, when you're together with your people for the 4th of July weekend, if you know they're a Big Ten fan or alum or family member, say, hey, there's this podcast out here, either on audio on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube if you want to watch the video. Locked On Big Ten. Locked On Big Ten. Spread the word. I appreciate it. And subscribe. All right. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you for checking us out for Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time.